Like sirens, yeah. Did you hear that sirens apparently went off in Jamestown and Xenia last night for like a minute at like midnight?
What?
Yeah.
Do you know how freaked out I would be if that happened?
I know.
Oh,
Tornado
man.
sirens?
No. So they had their clock wrong because it was supposed to be noon on Monday.
Yeah.
Noon Monday, the first Monday of the month, is our tornado siren.
That makes total sense.
So
That's
they
why
had
they
it
went
off. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'd have been up and going to the closet.
No kidding. And I saw it on social media. I didn't even see it on
Oh man.
like the news.
See that kind of stuff. So that's a great segue. We're going to talk about emergency preparedness.
Yeah.
And so what do you do when all of a sudden the alarm starts going off, the siren, and you're figuring out what you have to do?
Yeah.
Not
I
to
go
make
down to my doomsday bunker with all of my canned goods.
not to make fun of any of it, because look at what all has gone on.
Right.
But the serious side of it is that, you know what, you do have to have a plan. And I think if we can give you any kind of a takeaway, it's all after the fact for some, but if we can give you any kind of takeaway, is to at least think about it. You know, I do this weird thing when we travel as a family that I go through this list of all the things that could happen. Okay, we get hijacked, we have the train get stuck, all of these things. But I've always, if there's a shooter or something like that, I tell my family, if I tell you to duck, you need to duck.
Yeah.
They think I'm crazy, I know, and you probably do too. But the reality is that my mind just automatically goes there.
Yeah.
So in talking about emergency preparedness, obviously depends on the type of emergency, right? If you're talking about something like a hurricane and you live on the water, then you're going to take different precautions than if you're talking about a tornado that's coming on the dirty side of it.
Yeah, at least hurricanes, you have some heads up. I feel like tornadoes just come out of kind of nowhere.
Yeah.
So at the time of this recording, Milton is striking Florida in a couple days. And right now they're saying it's Category 5 and it's going to hit Tampa. And my husband has some friends that live a little bit south of there. And so we talked to him yesterday and he was like, what are you doing? And he was like, I'm trying to find sand. And we were like, for what? Like, do you build a moat? Or like, how does this work? Because, we don't know.
Yeah.
And so he said, no, you get sandbags and you put them at all your doors so that the water doesn't come in. And we were like, oh, okay. Well, is it kind of dumb question, but don't you have a beach? Like unlimited sand? And they're like, oh, no, that's illegal. You can't take sand from there. So you have to find sand, like for a sandbox around. And I guess a lot of the restaurants or different like firehouses and stuff will get truckloads of sand.
Yep.
Yeah.
Trucks, and then you
they'll
brag it
say,
up.
hey, we've got it. And yeah, you take your bags over there.
Yeah.
But so my husband's friend couldn't find any sand. So what he ended up doing was, because grass down there is kind of sand, and they dug up like around their property line and then bagged it up and then put it there. And it seems to be working well.
Wow. You
Yeah.
got to be a little ingenious about the things that you use. There's got to be better things that we could be doing for this type of stuff,
Yeah.
Like they use Christmas trees that have been thrown out. They use those to build back up the beach when there's been erosion and everything like that. So there's things that we are on the right track for trying to help eliminate some of this climate change and the destruction that's coming from Mother Nature. But as an individual, if you think you've got to be able to keep plywood on hand so that you can board up, or if you put plastic over and then board it up, the whole process, like it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
As an individual, maybe that's something you can't really handle taking care of.
Yeah.
If you have a 2-story house, are you going to get up on a ladder and do this stuff? Yes. With a hurricane, you have a little bit of an advance notice. But I know I've lived in those zones before, and a lot of people just didn't even do anything about it. I'm the person who's going to freak out and say, well, I'm hitting high ground or getting out of here. At least, you lose the stuff, you don't lose your life.
Yeah.
But this is also an area that just came out of one.
Right.
And so maybe some of the resources that they would normally have, they probably don't even have access to.
No, so I saw a news article where they were talking about everything that was flooded is like sewage water. So it's not clean drinking water. And so all their couches and all of their drywall and, everything 4 feet up is all soaked in this nasty sewage water.
That's biogrowth now.
And so they have put it out on their front yards. And these cities and private trash pickup companies haven't had time to pick it up. So you're going to have like flying debris in this next hurricane.
So I think the latest report that I heard, Governor DeSantis was talking about that he did executive order or something where it's 24/7.
Yeah,
2 days in
did you
advance
see
we're doing this.
Pinellas County, which is like St. Pete area, said no, and they fenced up their trash landfills.
Oh, wow.
And said, no, we're only staying open like, these times. So within 2 hours, DeSantis had his people dragging the fence away, fired everybody that works there, and now has police running the landfill.
I mean, sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Local elections matter, people.
Right?
Yeah. You need people that are...
The greater good of the majority of the people have to reside. And I say good for him if that's what he did to take the action.
Yeah.
Because literally the difference of somebody's life can be whether or not there's flying debris going.
Yeah.
Because if you think of that cone that's coming in through, if it hits Tampa as the middle, anything that's on the east side, so Miami, anything that's that St. Pete, any of that has the potential for the tornadoes, the swirl up and all of that. It's not going to be pleasant for anybody.
Yeah, that's why like people in Florida will put all of their lawn furniture in their pool because the water keeps it down. That way it's not flying and hitting windows and houses or people.
Yeah. So other things, obviously, we've kind of joked about, not really joked, but said, your electric items aren't going to do you much good if you've lost electric power. So a generator, I just had a recent experience with that. My mom, who's oxygen dependent currently, staying in the house, and this last storm that went through, we lost power. And I knew that the winds were coming through, and a couple hours ahead of time, I made the comment to my son, hey, do we need to think about getting a generator just in case? Nah, we're fine. If we lose power, normally in our area, we only lose power for a little bit. When I tell you we lost power and it was for 6 hours, I was in emergency crisis mode because my mom wasn't going to be able to breathe on the oxygen tanks that we had, but for 3 hours. So I went into mode of, who do I know? Where can I find this? We would borrow, we would pay, we would do whatever we could. And unfortunately, a lot of times what happens when these events take place, not only do the grocery shelves get wiped out and people take all of the stuff that you really probably need or could use, but prices go up. And so instead of being the couple of $100 or several $100s for an item, maybe now it's $1,000. And so my son went out and went to Home Depot, and he's like, look, I'm here. I had somebody who said, hey, we've got one you can borrow. And I'm like, make a decision. And I told him, I said, if they charge you any more than this number that we agreed on, then we'll just borrow and we'll be good. They had not marked it up. He grabbed it, got it. Thankfully, my friend, thank you very much for that. We didn't need it. They were able to use it, but he got it. And by the time because we didn't have one. Yeah. So not only do you have the process of buying it, fighting maybe in a line to get it, but now you've got it. Now you bring it home. Well, now you have to figure out how to use this thing, right? Well, good thing he's a little bit, he is mechanically inclined.
Yeah.
I didn't want to have to figure it out in the dark. And then it's like, he had gotten the gasoline, but he didn't realize about the oil. So you have to know what it takes for that piece of machinery to actually function and how long you're going to be able to work it. So in our case, we only had to go 6.5 hours without the power. And other people I know in Vandalia and still some that were in Beaver Creek were without for a couple of days.
Yeah.
So at a couple of days, you lose what's in your refrigerator or freezer. And so if you don't have a generator or some supply of that, now you're tossing food. The last time we had an incident, I lost a lot of food that would have been, I was going to lose a lot of food that was in the freezer. So I just started cooking it all because I had propane tanks that I could cook on the grill. And I just started batch cooking everything so that it didn't go to waste. Even giving out to people that I knew, because it's like, hey, I've got all these wings that need to be eaten. Like, come get some wings. But that's what you have to think about. So you can use your grill, your barbecue grill, if you have propane tank on hand or a couple of those. I don't think that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Batteries, candles. You know, we have all these decorative candles and everything. And at one point, well, we lived in Arizona for a while. It's off track, but still on track. And we could get these 24-hour candles. I think they're religious candles, to be honest, that they use when they burn in masses and things, or they light a candle for a special ceremony. But they burn for like 24 hours, and they're clean, they're easy, they're in a glass container, so you don't have to worry about it. I used to have tons of these.
Yeah.
Well, here I am. I'm like, where the hell are all my candles? Like, I got these little decorative ones, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay, so I have to definitely stock up. So emergency candles would be a good thing.
Yeah.
Batteries for your flashlights.
Yes. Meals that you can eat that don't require a microwave, or if you don't have a grill.
Yep.
So like sandwiches, peanut butter and jelly.
Crackers, peanut butter crackers are good. Nutrition bars. You know, we keep a backpack full of the things, and that's why I said I'd go to the closet, because that's where I put the backpack when the
Your
boys
go bag.
It was our go bag, and we get in there and I wonder what snacks are in here. Let's go into the closet and eat some snacks. But it's also a quick way that if you had to go, you know, we would grab the bag and we could get in the car and we could make our exit if that was one of the things that needed to happen. The other things that I started doing was I made a list of all the things, electronics and components, just the things that are in the house, not necessarily how many clothes or anything. But at one point, I went that far.
Yeah.
Like, if I have to do an insurance claim, my clothes for my work and for all the things that I do, you know, this is important. So I started documenting all of this.
Yeah.
If you have a list of all of this that you upload, put on a file, safe firebox, whatever, this is all things that if you ever have to make a claim, at least you have something to point back to it. The other thing is taking photographs of everything that you have, so that it at least jogs your memory. Oh yeah, that's right, I had a China hutch. Oh yeah, I had this. Because in the moment after destruction happens, it's hard to come up with what was what and where did you get it, how long have you owned it. And so part of your emergency preparedness is just, before anything happens, make a full detailed list if you can. Take pictures if you can, and back those items up so that you have something to refer back to.
Yeah. And so when we had the tornadoes in 2019, Memorial Day tornadoes here, one of the things that I learned was that looters come in to areas that have been greatly affected, and the police can only do so much to keep them out. So one of our friends had their house completely moved off of its foundation, and they had a box truck out front, and the neighbors said the box truck flew up and flew down the street, turned around, came back, and like landed back in their yard.
No way.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But he ended up sleeping outside with a gun on his front porch for
Fear of having it
a
looted.
week and a half
Yeah.
until they could get all of their valuables out of the house and, you know, some kind of boarded up, tarped up, you know, whatever.
Yeah. And there's things that happen. Unfortunately, there's going to be bad that comes out of something bad that happens. I suffered a loss of a home many years ago, and it was a total loss. And I definitely learned from that a lot of things. One, what's important and what's not. My son and I were safe. We lost everything. And the build back from that took years. And it took support from people I didn't even know. The community outreach that we received was tremendous. What was disappointing was the Red Cross and my insurance response. One, because of the time that it takes. Two, because of how discounted they made everything in our life feel. That well, if it was 10 years old, then we're not gonna pay you replacement costs. We're only gonna give you a portion of this. And when you see basically your life accumulations to that point tallied up on a sheet, and they are giving you $20 for a suit, or, you know, pennies for a TV, there's things that you lose that you will never replace. I lost things of my grandmother's that are gone. not replaceable. You can't even give me money for it. And the reality hit very hard at that time that, I had insurance, so I received less support from these organizations because they were relying on my insurance to pick up the tab, which that feels like a double slam at that point. Because the insurance is going to take longer. In the meantime, I have a son. We have nothing. We need to be finding a place to live. I have no resources as far as any of this. And we didn't have clothes, but what was on our back, basically. So there were things that I learned from that, and that was from a loss of a fire. So again, unexpected, not known, not prepared for. What I do now as a result of that, so what we have happened to us, yes, does build our future. Not only did we take a go bag and learn that trick for when there's tornadoes and things like that, but I take the suitcases that, normally people just store their suitcases in their garage, attic, or wherever. Take the suitcases, instead of them being empty, they get filled with things that maybe I don't really need right now, but I would like or want, and that again gets stored. And my contact information is inside of those suitcases, and it's just, in my mind, yes, if I'm going to take a trip and I got to clean out a suitcase so that I can put the good stuff in there, that's fine. But if something happens, the idea of if that suitcase goes flying down the road and then I can find it, well, then at least I have maybe some things in there, change of clothes, a pair of shoes, or something like that. So those are little quirks that I kind of took away from something so serious.
Well, it's crazy, like in the tornado, how far things can travel.
Yep.
We were finding people's wallets from, like, Indiana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, because those little things like that can fly.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. One of the biggest tips that I learned kind of recently, and I never even thought about, Xenia had the tornadoes a long time ago.
1974.
Yeah. And one of my friends, born and raised in Xenia, we were talking about tornadoes, and she said, put your shoes on. And I was like, usually when I go down to the basement, to take cover for a tornado, I grab my kids and I go down. I don't put shoes on. But if your house is destroyed around you, you won't be able to walk.
Right.
Yeah. And especially if it's in the middle of the night, take your glasses or your contacts so you can see.
Yep. And then, obviously we all have electronics and everything like that. Spare battery or the battery backup, I always make sure is charged so that if I have to grab it, it's in the go bag, whatever. At least if we needed to, we could recharge our phone. It's just little things like that you really learn. So we'd love to hear from you if you've experienced anything. Sorry for your loss in the past. But what did you learn from that? And share with us as to great ideas and tips. The nutrition, the food, those items, especially medical needs people have. You have to kind of think about what's your particular situation and how would you need to address it.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us today on the Real Tea Podcast. If you enjoyed the knowledge and entertainment today, please subscribe and share with your friends. We will be embarking on a journey that bridges the gap between realtors and clients, uncovering the heart and tea of real estate.